Hi there. Welcome to Mastering Midlife. 5 truths to help you get unstuck and on purpose at midlife. My name is Erin Kirk, and I'm the founder of a company called Girl Catch Fire. And our whole mission is to do just that, to help you get unstuck and out of this rut that you're in, particularly if it snuck up on you at midlife. So before we get started, I just want to make sure you're in the right place. So who this training is for today? Well, it's for women who got kind of surprised by midlife, like who might feel a little lost and anxious and stuck in a rut. It's for women in some big identity shift, divorce, empty nest, career change, or burnout, really common at midlife. It's also for high achievers who are ready to make moves on a big dream but aren't sure what to do or how. It's also for women who are tired of pleasing and settling and faking, who want to dream and play big, maybe even for the first time. In this short training, I'm going to show you a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to show you why you're not crazy and why midlife is absolutely the natural time to stop reacting to your life and create it instead. I'm going to show you why the conventional method for finding your purpose, in air quotes, doesn't work and what to do instead. And I'm going to show you why you will never really get over fear as much as you're going to feel, understand, and utilize it. I'll also show you how unhealed trauma holds us back and give you a whole new way of looking at it. Plus, I'm going to show you how my clients are casting fresh vision for their lives and getting themselves back into gear. And I'll also show you why, in a COVID world, we need each other more than ever. So my promise to you over the next about 45 minutes is to give you 5 wise truths to help you get unstuck, in gear, and back on purpose at midlife. But first of all, does any of this sound like you? Do you feel like you've just kind of lost your mojo? Like you've lost your way, you've lost your passion for life, everything feels a little bit nah, and not very inspiring, and you're not really sure which direction to go? Are you bored or anxious or feel like you're just wasting your time? Are you secretly jealous of women who are doing things that you dream of doing? And do you miss that feeling of joy and progress and service to other people? Are you lonely, even if you're surrounded by people all the time? Are you sick of just going through the motions in your life, as your job, in your relationships, in your career, and just not really living your full potential? Or are you sitting on some big ambition, but you're just too scared to action it? At the end of the day, are you just afraid that you might be wasting the second half of your life? Well, if any of that feels like your problem, I can tell you that is not your problem. Your problem is that there are some strategies and truths that for mastering midlife that we were never taught. But what I learned is, as you begin to master midlife, a couple of things happen. Number 1, you quit performing for everybody and you get honest about what you really want. You start to take full responsibility for your life and you start dreaming again about what it could look like. Plus, you start getting healthy, like mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, like wholeness. It's very exciting. On top of that, you also begin to trust that you do in fact have a purpose, or maybe even several of them. You start to set higher standards and abide by a daily plan of action, even on the days when you don't really feel like it. You also become the light in the room, an encouragement, and a beacon for other women. So as I said, my name is Erin Kirk. I am a trauma-informed, professional, certified life coach with more than 1,000 hours in my coaching practice. I am an energy leadership master practitioner. I am a writer and a world traveler, and I also host high-end coaching retreats in the US and Europe. When I hit midlife, a little early, age 37, I really just thought something had gone wrong with me. Something had gone haywire. And I thought, what is all this anxiousness? And what is this fear? And what is this? It feels like the earth is shifting underneath me, and yet nothing has really changed. So what's causing all of this? And so I've been in this game for a while now, and I discovered that there are really some really fundamental truths that our culture isn't talking about very well. And so that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. All right? So 5 truths for mastering midlife, and hint, it is a process. So let's dive in with midlife truth number 1. The first truth is Midlife shift is normal, and you are normal. Let that sink in for a second. You might feel terrible right now. You might feel like you're going crazy. Your body is going crazy. You can't trust yourself. You are stuck as stuck can be. You don't understand why, but I can tell you that there's nothing wrong with you. Okay, and nor are you particularly alone in feeling this way. Did you know that there are 42 million American women between the ages of 40 and 60? So the experience that you're having is actually a lot more common than you may think. And you're going through a natural phase of human development, just like adolescence. Okay, so everybody knows that adolescence is a thing. Everybody knows that teenagers are changing in really profound ways, emotionally, physically, mentally, all of these things. Midlife is the same way. It just has never been studied that much in terms of a phase of human development. It just doesn't get a lot of attention. There's a guy, an author I like named David Brooks, and he wrote a book called The Second Mountain. And he puts it like this. He said, your life really has two mountains, and midlife is the valley in between them. And in your first mountain, you spend a lot of time establishing your career and your identity and who you are and building your family and where you kind of stand in the world. And all of this, nothing wrong with that. All of it is really the construct for your life. That's what you do in your life's first mountain, is you build your construct. Carl Jung would call it, you fashion your ego, really. And then something happens. It can be a number of things. It could be divorce. It could be empty nest. It could just be, turning 47. It could be a number of things. But all of a sudden you hit a valley and things don't feel very good anymore and things feel like they're shifting and changing. Well, that's normal because your second mountain is ahead of you. And the tools that you use to climb your first mountain aren't going to work on your second mountain. So you actually need to spend a little time in the valley equipping yourself for your second climb. And that second climb is, while your first climb was all about your ego, your second climb is all about your purpose. What am I really doing here? What is my life really for? So maybe you're asking yourself those questions right now while feeling terrible in the valley. And I'll tell you that that's normal. Okay, so you can feel yucky in the valley, but at the same time, if you're smart, you'll use that valley as a launch pad to equip yourself for your next climb. Does that make sense? I hope so. Now, of course, the way we talk about midlife is dumb though, right? Like has anybody ever explained midlife to you like that? No, they make jokes about it. Like, oh, just get Botox or buy a sports car or leave your spouse or, so I just want to have a new conversation because here's some of the shifts that people actually are experiencing in midlife. So maybe you're feeling like you're really frustrated or you're apathetic or both, which is a weird combination. Maybe you're feeling really jealous of others. Or of course, the physical manifestation of perimenopause and menopause, like weight gain, and feeling hot and irritable and foggy and all of those things. You might have catastrophic thinking, like that even feels new, like when did I get so negative? How did this happen? Of course, maybe you have new physical aches and pains and not really sure what's going on there. Asking the big questions. That's second mountain behavior, or that's definitely midlife dip behavior. What am I doing here? What is my life really for? You can also just straight up feel like you're losing your mind. You might even have people that are telling you you're losing your mind. Doesn't help. Your relationships might be shifting and you don't really know what to do about it. You might have a really dim view of the future and be feeling kind of hopeless. Like, gosh, is this it? What about feeling old and bored? You got that going on? Listen, those are all really common. That's not unusual at all. So let's have a better conversation about it. You're not crazy, you're just deconstructing. And no, it's not fun, but everybody knows that the caterpillar has to dissolve into goop before becoming a butterfly. Actually, not everybody knows that, but that's what happens. But what we know for sure is that the strategies and the stories and your way of being from your first mountain are now pretty exhausted. And midlife is a chance for you to develop new vision and new tools. And that's a much more interesting conversation, isn't it? So yes, the process can be disruptive and painful, but so is not doing anything about it. And, people avoid the invitation. They medicate it. They, shop. They cheat. They blow up relationships. They do all sorts of weird behaviors to avoid going into the chrysalis and dissolving, basically. And so they can come out something new. But God is the great creator. And you're made in God's image. And so therefore you are a creator too. And suffering and boredom happens when you stop creating. And unfortunately, that's where people get stuck in midlife because they can't keep hanging on to what happened in their first mountain, but they don't know about the second mountain. It just feels like it's over. And that's where a lot of the suffering and boredom comes from. So my question is what are you here to create? What are you here doing with your life, particularly your second half? And that takes us into midlife truth number 2. You don't discover your purpose, you build it. Now, as I said, I've been in this game for a while. I have been a life purpose coach for about 4 years. It's all I do, it's all I teach, it's all I think about. I read obsessively about it because mainly I had a pain point in my own life. What am I doing here? What's my life for? What's the second half of my life for? I had to figure all this out. And in my own evolution, I have discovered that there are myths. There's a handful of myths around life purpose, and some of them I've even participated in, but now I know better. So let me debunk a couple of myths about purpose for you guys. So life purpose myth number 1 is this. You find, you detect, you discover your life's purpose. When in reality, your purpose can't be discovered exactly because it doesn't exist outside of you. Your purpose is inside of you. It's already there. It's built in. And you build your purpose over time by just bravely following your faith and your curiosity about the way you were built and the stuff that lights you up. Okay? So by doing that, over time, you create purposeful experiences, careers, relationships, but you mostly do it through trial and error. Okay? So again, it's not something you find out there. It's something that's already within you that you cultivate. Midlife purpose myth number 2, which goes right along with that, is my purpose is my job or my career or my role in life. Hoo boy, everybody gets this one wrong. People think this all the time. They think their job is their purpose, or they go looking for a job to give them purpose. It's not how it works. Instead, your purpose in life is actually a set of emotional states that you want to feel. So we set career goals, relationship goals, life goals in order to feel certain emotions like love or joy or contentment, success, power, achievement, whatever. You pick. So let me give you an example. Let's say you tell me that you want to be a firefighter and I ask why. And after a little kind of fussing around, we kind of get down to it that you want to feel proud and you want to feel brave and like you're contributing to your community and in a helpful way, in a good way. And so what I would tell you is your purpose here is actually proud, brave, and helpful. And firefighting is one vehicle that you may drive to get you there. Your purpose is not your job or your role. Okay? It's actually the set of emotional states that you want to feel that actually light you up. You set your goals to feel those emotions. And the things you do with your time are the vehicles to get you there. Now, the great news about this is, for instance, with the firefighting example, is let's just say, for instance, that God forbid you had some sort of accident that prevented you from being a firefighter anymore. And of course, that's going to be painful. That's going to be a really difficult thing to accept. But if you understand this principle, you're not going to have an existential crisis about it because your job as a firefighter isn't your purpose. It's the vehicle, right? There's lots of ways you could feel proud and brave and helpful. And if you know that that's your purpose in life, you can find a different way to express that. You didn't lose your purpose. You just lost one of the vehicles to get you to your purpose. Does that make sense? Life purpose myth number 3. I only have one. There's one great life purpose and I need to find it out there and it's probably my job, right? I just rolled all 3 of those myths together. Wrong. The reality is if you are continually growing, your purpose will change over time and the vehicles you use will reflect that. All right, so I'll give you an example. When I turned 45, I started hosting retreats. And I had done a whole lot of other things before age 45, as you might imagine. Now remember that the retreats are not my purpose. My purpose is the feeling of love and service and belonging the retreats create for other people and me. So the retreats are just one of the many vehicles I use to create that emotional set of love, belonging, and service to other people. Now, life purpose myth number 4. If I buy this book, join this course, go to this conference, then I'll finally know my purpose and I'll begin living it. Unfortunately, there just isn't a magic pill. I wish there was a magic pill. I promise you if there was one, I would sell it. But there isn't one. Nobody can tell you what your purpose is in life. Your purpose is a process that grows as you do. So I can show you how, but only you know if you will. And as you do this work, as you begin to cultivate your emotional states, and as you begin to figure out what the vehicles are that express those emotional states best for you, you come up against all sorts of internal work and challenges and new environments and new relationships and people. And this is how you grow in purpose, right? And the reward for this work is the person that you get to become, plain and simple. Okay, and here's the last myth. Life purpose myth number 5. I'm waiting for a breakthrough or a word from God to tell me exactly what I should do with my life and how. I hear this from Christians that I work with quite often, like I'm just waiting for God to show me what to do and how to do it. And frankly, like that's kind of not even a biblical model. Like seems like in the Bible anyway, God was a little bit more want to say, start walking and I'll tell you where you should go, or, go see Pharaoh and I'll tell you what you're going to say when you get there. So the reality is that you learn your purpose the same way you learn to swim, by swimming. The more you swim, the more certainty and strength you build so you can swim farther and faster. So it's the same with living on purpose. The more you do it, the more you practice, the more confident you become and the stronger you become. And you look back and think over time like, wow, I was so uncertain about this particular vehicle, but now I'm really confident in it just because I've been using it and been driving it. So let me give you a new approach to thinking about your purpose. And hopefully those myths are kind of rattling around in your brain a little bit, like shifting your paradigm, like, oh, okay, perhaps that's right. Your purpose is going to reveal itself only as you clarify and admit what you want and walk toward it. I'm going to say that again. Your purpose reveals itself only as you clarify and admit what you want and start walking toward it. So the question is what do I really want? What do I value? What emotional states are central to me? And finally, is it selfish to admit it? Now, that last question, my loves, is one that people choke on all the time. So especially women have spent so many years taking care of everybody else's needs. And perhaps you're one of them and you put your own needs on the back burner. And they're so far on the back burner, they're not even on the stove. And so you may be at a place in your life where all of a sudden you have the opportunity to ask yourself what you want and you don't even have a clue because it's been so long. Okay? So is it selfish to admit that? My question for you, if you're struggling with like, oh, is it selfish to say what I want and what I value and what emotional states are important to me? My question for you is, if it's not your job to figure out what your purpose is, whose job is it? Is it your spouse? Is it God's job? Is it your boss? I mean, whose job is it to figure out what God put you here for? Right? It's yours. And of course you can do it in the context of your faith. You can, do it in that partnership. And I'm not inviting you to be belligerent or rude to anybody about it, but just to put yourself in the game as well. What do I want? Right? I hope that makes sense. And then once you get that figured out, like what vehicles might get me into those emotional states? Like for instance, I've mentioned that my emotional drivers for my purpose are connection, love, and a sense of service. Okay, so what are the vehicles that might get me there? Well, I can write books, I can host retreats, I can be a life coach, I can speak, I can do all sorts of things. And then you might ask yourself, what small actions could I take to get started? Okay, now, of course, this is harder than taking a magic pill, right? Everybody wishes there was a pill, but there isn't one. So your malaise that you're feeling at midlife is actually calling you to become something else, but you need the courage to try stuff and quote unquote fail at it. And yes, that is harder. And you will absolutely not figure out step 26 of this vision that you have for your life before you take step 1. Also harder. Many people get stuck in walking out their purpose, first of all, because they don't really understand it. Second of all, because they can't see the whole picture. And I want to see the whole picture before I begin. And very rarely is that the case. You have to start walking and trust that as you go forward, then your next step will be revealed, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Because truly, like, if we remain hermetically sealed inside a life we can easily handle, our faith in God and our own ability stagnates. We just never have to test ourselves. And some of you are bored stiff because of that. Sometimes our comfort zones are killing us. So let's talk about failure just for a second. I think that's kind of important. What is failure anyway? So many of us are terrified to fail. I can't take step 1 because I'm afraid to fail. Okay, but what is failure? I like to think of failure as an unexpected outcome. And often it's painful or humiliating or whatever, but it's rarely fatal. And it's important to keep that in mind. And as long as you learn and adapt, it's not a failure, it's a lesson. And sometimes you'll look back and be so glad that you had that lesson early on. The important thing about confronting your fear of failure is that courage is not a gift. You know, some people are really courageous. Yeah, maybe some people are kind of genetically kind of built that way, but for most of us, it's not a gift we're given, it's a muscle we build. And it only grows through resistance, just like you build your biceps by lifting or doing curls at the gym. Okay, so one of those exercises you're going to do to build your courage muscle is confront your fear of failure. Does that make sense? Think about fear as fertilizer. It's just going to help you grow. And that takes us into midlife truth number 3. Fear is just absolutely part of your process. And midlife is vulnerable. It's a very vulnerable time. So much is changing. So much is shifting. So much is shifting within you, and you're not even sure how it's all going to come out. But when you start telling the truth about who you are and what you want, all of your unresolved issues, your survival patterns, your attachments, your unhealed trauma comes roaring to the surface, right? That's why midlife doesn't feel very good. That's why people avoid it. But this is the resistance that builds your courage and resilience muscle. And frankly, you're going to need these muscles to withstand the challenges your purpose will inevitably present. And yes, midlife shift is fearsome, right? It's scary. And people avoid it because it's scary. But like, for instance, what if my future requires a skill set that I don't have? Such as, I don't know how to manage my mind. I didn't even know you can do that. How do I manage my energy? And I don't mean physical energy. Well, I kind of do. But like your emotional energy, like the energy that you're putting out into the world. How do I manage that? What about confronting your trauma patterns? Some people are like, I don't even know what you're talking about, right? This is new stuff. It's new. I'm telling you guys, this is new. What about managing anxiety? Some of you are swamped with anxiety like I was. I was swamped with it, terrified, all the time. Setting boundaries. How many of you know how to do that? How many of you believe that's kind of important? Right? It is. It's very important. What about upsetting the apple cart? Oh gosh, I don't think I want to say what I want from my life because I might upset the apple cart. Yeah, you might. What do you do then? What about dealing with fear? Sure, of course. What about engaging conflict? Ugh. How well do you know how to do that? So yeah, telling the truth in relationships. All of this stuff can be, again, you are looking at the construct of your first mountain and looking at the tools that you used and saying which ones still work and which ones need to go and what do I need to develop for my second climb. Okay? So, and of course, none of this happens in your comfort zone. None of it. It's scary. So here's the old approach to fear. Like this is kind of what I was taught and probably you were as well. This is how you handle fear. Just suck it up, buttercup. Have you ever watched someone giving a speech and their knees are shaking and their voice is shaking? Like, oh, you just die 1,000 deaths for them, right? That's the kind of suck it up, buttercup approach. Like, you just do it anyway. And yes, there's merit, but there's a little bit better way to go about it that isn't quite so painful for you and everybody else, okay? Or here's another one. Hey, stop being irrational. You're being so irrational right now. There's nothing to be afraid of for giving this speech. Like, you just get up there. It'll be fine. Shove it down. Like, just ignore it. Like, compartmentalize it. Slam that door. Don't go there. Don't talk about it. Don't look at it. Or, sometimes we get paralyzed by fear and we quit. That sound familiar? What about never starting? That's another one. Like, I got this thing that I want to do, but I'm really afraid. And so I've got to organize my sock drawer first and just spend a little more time at procrastination station. Or what about the shiny object syndrome? Well, I've been working on this thing of mine, but I'm scared, so now I'm going to go start a new thing. Here's the new approach. So think about fear not as your enemy, but as data. It's just telling you something. What is it telling you? Well, your fear might be telling you that what you're doing is new. Or you've simply never done it before, so of course you feel afraid. Yeah, makes sense. What you're doing is worthwhile. One of my coaches says that fear is one of the very best signals that what you're doing is important and worthwhile. And it's like a signpost saying, yeah, keep going, go this way. Yeah, you're going the right way. Isn't that interesting? Fear can also be telling you that something needs more attention. There's some part of this you missed, or that just needs a little bit more massaging or whatever to get it to be where you need to be. Fear also might be telling you that what you're doing is necessary and serves others or the world. Don't think for a second that the spiritual powers are going to lay out the red carpet for you. They're not. If you can do something that makes the world better, you're going to get some opposition. Okay? So here's a great question. Fear, what are you trying to tell me right now? Like, what do I need to know? Oh, okay, I'm just afraid because this is new. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. You just acknowledge it and just let it flow. You'd be amazed at the difference that makes. So, and of course, fear can be irrational. And what I mean by that is that sometimes the fear that you're feeling is not even your brain. Sometimes it's your nervous system. It's recognized a threat and it's trying to keep you safe. And some younger part of you is triggered and it feels unsafe and unheard. So that all can be a sign of unhealed trauma that's living in your nervous system. All right, so let me say a word about trauma just so we all know what we're talking about here. So you have like some of you know that like a woman who always dates the same guy over and over again, just he's in different outfit every time, but she always seems to pick the same guy. Like, why does she do that? Well, we all do that to some degree. We repeat the same patterns again and again, and that can be a trauma behavior, right? So when we talk about trauma, here's the thing that most people get wrong, is they think like, okay, well, I don't have trauma because I haven't been in combat, or I don't have any, sexual trauma, or I've never been traumatized. But every human being has trauma, and it exists on a spectrum, okay? From really, really severe and intense to something that might be less intense. But what's important to notice is it's all valid. All right, so let me give you an example. So like if somebody's got combat trauma, really serious sexual, physical abuse trauma, neglect, that kind of thing, that might be big T. For me, when I was 4 years old, I got separated from my mom at a street fair in Seattle. And I don't know how long I was lost, maybe 20 minutes. I walked up to a police officer and said, help me, I'm lost. And they found my mom, who was completely beside herself looking for me, of course. And to this day, when I get lost, I panic. That is little t trauma. Okay, so there's something living in my nervous system that remembers just the fear and how unsafe I felt and terrified I felt. It's still in there, and it will come up if I get lost. Isn't that interesting? So think about your life and think about the things that might have been traumatic to you in your past. And the truth is, we make up stories about why we keep getting tripped up about things, why we keep dating the same guy, or why we always start and stop new projects and we don't ever complete anything or whatever. The stories that we make up are usually pretty mean and they're often wrong. Okay? Yeah, great. So maybe I have that. What do I do about it? Well, first, you're going to investigate those stories that you're telling yourself about why you're doing things. Why do I always start things and never complete them? Why am I procrastinating so much? Why do I get so afraid when I am going to put something on social media or whatever? Investigate those stories, but do it in a kind way, like you would with a frightened child. When you're feeling that trigger and you're feeling afraid or any other emotions that you feel like are not super rational, you might say, I'm going to talk to myself like I would a child. Hey, what's going on here? So you want to give those parts of you a seat at the table and just kind of hear them out. Just turn to them and listen to what they have to say, and then give them whatever they ask for. Is it a hug? Is it assurances? Is it just backup that you've got this, like comfort? I don't know. But that kind of the only way out, guys, is through. All right? And that takes us to midlife shift number 4. Like, as you're walking forward on your purpose, you got to draw the map and then actually walk. Misery, anxiety, boredom, they're hard to maintain when you're walking towards something that matters to you. And by the way, your brain loves progress, loves it. So progress, when you make progress on whatever you're doing, your brain will give you a little dopamine hit, which is a little happiness hit, right? It's the happiness drug or the happiness chemical. And so why not give yourself repeated little dope hits by making progress, which encourages you to make more progress? You see how it goes? It's very simple. And there are so many methodologies for goal setting and achievement. We teach one of these methods for goal setting and achievement just because it works. Yeah, it just works. So it's something like this. Like once you're clear on what emotional states you want to achieve and what vehicles might help you get there, we just help you map it out and then execute it. And every day, my clients take 1 to 2 steps. Just 1 to 2 steps. That's it. Every day. Not everything all at once. Just some things or little things, steps every day. And it's amazing. I think it's Tony Robbins that says, like, most people overestimate what they can get done in a year and underestimate what they can get done in 5. And that's kind of true. It's like this daily, quotidian walking forward towards something with great clarity is how you build a life that you love. And that's what we're doing, right? So as you're doing this work, we're right there, like lovingly holding you accountable. And here's some of the things that my clients are getting up to, sort of using this process. They're leaving jobs that no longer fit them. They're planning international adventures. They're starting or restarting small businesses, restoring their marriages, quitting drinking, going back to school, serving their communities, building programs of their own. It's just so fun to watch because they finally have gotten clear on what they really want, and they are confidently striding toward it, not with big leaps and bounds, but just daily, step after step after step after step. Okay, that's how you climb the mountain. See? This is what it looks like to be in gear and on purpose. This is what we're talking about. So, and it isn't magic. It's just not. It's work that feels a little bit magical. Now, question for you. You might have a pen and paper out for this. What are your purpose vehicles? Well, we got to start with your emotional states, right? Like, how do I want to feel? What emotions do I want to feel? Is it love? Is it achievement? Is it success? Is it power? Is it contentment? Is it joy? Is it giddiness? Is it delight? Like whatever. What are those emotional states? Then get a little curious about what activities and relationships and idea fuel those states for you. Just maybe start to brainstorm it a little bit. Let me tell you about this, about a woman named Patricia Katz. She did a TED Talk. It was TEDx, and it was about purpose, how to discover your purpose. And the way she described it was like collecting kindling to start a campfire. And she said what she did in her own life was she just got really curious about what things sort of seemed just for whatever reason interesting to her. She was just curious about them, and she would pick them up in the same way that you would gather little sticks in your arms to build a fire. Right? So, oh, that sounds kind of interesting. That's like another little piece of kindling. And that sounds interesting. And this seems kind of piques my curiosity. I'm going to pick up that little stick. Right? So once she had all these little sticks together, she got brave and lit a match. And in her case, what that looked like is she got interested in painting. And that turned into a love of watercolors. And one day she went and stroked a check to some watercolor teacher, because that was her lighting the match, saying, I don't really know all the answers to this. I don't know what step 26 is, but I'm going to take step 2, which is I'm going to strike a match. And so today she has a coffee table book of all of her watercolors of her cute little town. And I think that there's some altruistic aspect to her book as well. Like the money goes somewhere, which is cool. So that was sort of her description. And I wonder if that's helpful to you. So maybe you're stuck on the sticks. I don't know what my sticks are. I want to go gather some sticks, but I have no idea what might be interesting to me or pique my curiosity. Okay, here's some questions. Ready? You can jot these down or answer them live if you like. So when you're scrolling social media, who makes you jealous? Seems like a terrible question, doesn't it? But why are you jealous? Like, why do they make you jealous? What are they doing? The answer is a stick. Who do you admire most and why? What are they doing? Jot down the first answer that comes to mind. Don't overthink it. I have a feeling something just popped to your mind. Write it down. What are they doing? If you were doing what they are doing, how would you feel? 1 or 2 words. Boom, boom. This is how I'd feel. Chances are you just figured out what your emotional drivers are. And what did you want when you were a kid? What did you want to be when you grew up? Just 1 or 2 words. And if you had only 6 months to live, what would you do and what would you stop doing? I hope this helps you. Let me ask you a final question, and this one's really important. Who does your vehicle serve? Like if you have it in mind, like I know what one of my vehicles is going to be, who does it serve? Because if your purpose and its vehicle only serve you, or maybe just you and your immediate family, it won't satisfy you over time. Because God is a giver and you're made in his image. Ergo, you are also a giver. So how does what you're planning on doing with your life, in other words, your purpose, how does your vehicle pay it back or pay it forward? It's a good question to keep in mind. Now, midlife truth number 5. You ready? You need a team. First part, you got to find a coach. Because the truth is, if you could do this on your own, you'd have done it by now. And you wouldn't be stuck. Simple as that. Because we can't see our own blind spots and our survival patterns and the way we rationalize them, etc. That actually takes a neutral observer, a third party standing on the outside of your life. And so who's asking you hard questions and guiding you, holding you accountable, highlighting your wins and cheering you on? Who's doing that for you? Also, I have more than 1,000 hours helping women get unstuck and on purpose. I literally change trajectories for a living. That's what I do. And as a company, our greatest joy is watching women catch fire as they clarify their purpose and start walking it out. So much fun for us. And we celebrate women. We support each other and we celebrate each other. So who's doing that for you? Also, where's your community? This is the part that we struggle with often. Loneliness is the dark side of our culture's love of independence, self-sufficiency, and privacy. And recent studies show that 40% of US adults over the age of 40 say they are lonely. And 50% say they don't have a single friend they can confide in. COVID has made it way worse. Here's why this matters. I mean, loneliness can shorten your lifespan by 15 years, which is equivalent in negative impacts to obesity and smoking. That's how dangerous loneliness is. And let me also just say that there is a stigma around loneliness. None of us want to admit that we're lonely because it feels shameful, like, oh, everyone else has their people all in place and I'm all alone because I'm a loser. No. Let me roll back. 40% of US adults over the age of 40 say they're lonely. So this is not just you. Okay? So it's okay. Don't be ashamed. This is not something to be ashamed of, but you got to do something about it. And unsurprisingly, millennials and Gen Z identify as the loneliest demographic. 54% of them say nobody knows them well. And we could talk all day about why that is. Also, for all of you big perfectionists, hyperachievers out there, or I'm like, I'm good, I got this. That mantra is going to either hold you back or burn you out. And maybe it's already done both. So, let's build it. Like what we do is remind you how to build community and friendship, which frankly is a lost art in America. We're not great at it. And also, we believe that serving your existing community is the fastest on-ramp to new and interesting connections with other humans. Yeah, it's a great way to do it. So I love this proverb, this African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. So who's your coach? And where's your community? Think about it. Now, today I promise to show you a couple things. And I hope that I've done this. I hope that you now understand why you're not crazy and why midlife is the natural time to stop reacting to your life and create one you love instead. And why finding your purpose doesn't really work, and it's in air quotes, doesn't really work, and what you can do instead, and why you will never really get over fear as much as you'll feel, understand, and utilize it. I also promise to show you how unhealed trauma holds us back and a new way of looking at it. Also promised to show you how my clients cast fresh vision for their lives and get confidently back in gear. and why in a COVID world we need each other more than ever. So all you've got to do is remember these 5 things. Number 1, midlife shift is normal. If you take nothing away from this training, I want you to remember that. This is normal. You're not crazy. You're going to be okay. All right? You're normal. Secondly, you don't discover your purpose, you build it. Day in, day out, taking courageous action, tiny little courageous actions every day. Number 3, fear is part of the process. Not going to get away from it. 4, you got to draw your map and start walking it. And 5, sure, maybe you can do it alone, but you shouldn't. So now, my dears, you have a choice. You can keep buying all the books and going to all the conferences and making solemn vows to yourself that you know are going to evaporate 3 weeks later, making promises to yourself, buying new journals, filling them out, still waking up every day, feeling lost and frustrated, watching years tick past, another year and another year that you haven't made progress on some big goal or some big kind of secret vision you have for your life. You can make up stories in your head about what's wrong with you and why you can't ever get anything done. You can keep kind of suffering in silence and not surrounding yourself with people that understand where you're at and can help you get out of it. You can do that. Keep trying to do it all by yourself and kind of keep it on the down low like something's wrong with you. You could do that. Or you could do something different. You could make a decision that this year is a line in the sand. That this is the year that you're going to change your trajectory. That you're going to figure out what your emotional drivers are and start building your purpose around them, building your life around those emotional drivers. Figuring out what vehicles are going to get you there. You're going to figure out how to build your courage muscle. You're going to do things that scare you. And in so doing, meet new people and gain more confidence and start changing your life and start basically catching fire. Which one do you want? I've set aside time in the next 48 hours to speak with you about how you can apply these ideas to your life starting today. And I've coached hundreds of people. I can promise you, whatever your specific challenge is, I've seen it and I know how to address it. Try to surprise me. And what I'll do is I'll work with you to craft a step-by-step plan so you can stop settling and start actually building a life that you love on fire and on purpose. And the cost to you of this chat with me is absolutely free. However, you got to be a couple things. Number 1, you've got to be ready to invest your time, your energy, and your money into changing your life. You've got to be a doer. So maybe this is the year to quit kicking the tires, to actually jump in and do it. Also, you've got to be open to new ideas and new people. And you got to be coachable. Like if you already know everything or you're rigid in your thinking, I can tell you right now we're not a fit. So why do I do this? Well, number 1, I'm very interested in building an army of women who are ready to make Earth look a little bit more like heaven. And whatever their work is, whatever their purpose is, it's beautiful and it's important and the world needs it. So it's important to them, it's important to us, and we want to help you get it out in the world because it's going to make the world better by definition. Also, I help women get unstuck every day. So if we get on the phone and we like each other, maybe we can partner up and help you start living on purpose as well. So to get started, all you need to do is pop over to girlcatchfire.com/chat. And you'll be taken to my scheduler where you can pick a time to visit with me. The slots are about 45 minutes and you can just pick one and sign up for it. And then a little form is going to pop up and ask you some questions about yourself. And this just helps me understand kind of where we're starting. Just gives me a little bit of backstory about you. But here's what I can tell you about this chat. This is going to be the best 45 minutes you've spent talking about yourself in a long time. Or it may be the only 45 minutes you've spent talking about yourself in a long time. But my intent is to find out where you're stuck and where you're dreaming of going. And if I can help you get there, I will tell you and show you exactly how. And if not, I will tell you that as well. And then try to steer you to someone or something to help you get the outcome that you're looking for. But I think it's just going to be a really valuable time for you. So, hop over to girlcatchfire.com/chat. I'm also going to make a little button pop up in the sidebar. You're certainly welcome to click that link as well to get you over there. So all in all, I just want to thank you so much for coming today. It's been my pleasure to share this with you. As you can see, it's kind of a topic I'm pretty passionate about because I get the biggest charge out of watching the women I work with get unstuck and on purpose. So if that's you and you want some help with that, book the call and let's talk about it. I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks so much for coming, and we'll speak soon.